Welcome everyone to this week's Creo Tips and Techniques webcast. We have something special for you today. For all our Creo faithful tips and techniques series followers, you probably remember that back in April, we covered the topic of Creo automation. And that session ran through a quick preview of a lot of different options that are available. And it also had a short introduction and a demo of SIGMAXIM smart assembly tools. That webcast is available as is all of our webcast recordings in the PTC community. And we'll send out a link following this call to get to those. And you can look, I believe it was April 5th of 2022, just last year. You can look and find it there. It was a really popular topic, and so today we're going to revisit that with Smart Assembly. However, the best tips and techniques come from customers like you with your own experiences and best practices. So we're thrilled to have from Carrier, Michael Dennis. He's going to share information about using Smart Assembly, and it's coming from the voice of the customer. We really appreciate that. So we'll take a look now at our plan for today, and I'll turn it over, I think, to Nelson. Is that right? Nelson Caperton.
Yeah, I can cover that, Ryan, if you'd like. And everybody see the agenda slide pop up?
Yes.
All right. So first, we're going to just introduce presenters from both SIGMAXIM and Carrier. Then we'll answer a couple key guiding questions about Creo automation in general. Then you'll get to hear about the automation journey that Michael Dennis and his team at Carrier are on, and the results that they've achieved, of course, the benefits to their business you want to know about. Then to conclude, we'll share how Creo customers like you can engage with SIGMAXIM if you want to, and our team of automation experts. We have customers everywhere. There's over 1 million applications for automation running our technology around the world today. Last point on the screen there, we've been doing this over 20 years. We only work with Creo customers. We only work with Creo CAD technology. The most important point really, though, is that we're 100% customer focused, our entire team. Our number one goal is to help our customers achieve their goals through automation. That is what we're about. All right, 2 quick questions we want to ask about Creo automation. Number one, what kind of Creo automation projects call for something beyond Creo out of the box, beyond a map key, beyond Pro Program, for example? And here's a quick parallel. Think about this. Okay, you work out, you exercise to improve your fitness. Everybody knows that. But if you optimize your diet along with your exercise regimen, you can reach peak performance. That's when you start combining things. This is just a simplified example, combining things to reach peak performance. We're in the business of helping Creo customers get the most out of their software, okay? Another way of thinking about it, Michael gave me this idea. Biggest thing to think about is scale. You know, you can do small things that are done very often in Creo, things that are done on a daily basis. Maybe I want to automate that. Or larger scale, you know, implement things throughout the enterprise to incorporate engineering rules, like product configurations. That's a huge one. So just simple question and answer here. The second question is, how can Creo customers identify high-value automation targets that are excellent Smart Assembly use cases? And really, the special sauce that sets real innovators apart is exerting effort in the right areas to maximize the resulting benefits. You know, you look at, I'll just bring up another exercise example. You look at Olympic lifters lifting, 3 times their body weight. They've got perfect form. The strength that they empower and speed that they exert is in the exact right areas at the exact right time to achieve amazing results. So with Creo automation, it's really about getting creative, all the ideas you can think of, leveraging your own company's rules and standards, which might give you more incentive to create and document rules and standards, and then get started on something, see what those results are. Okay, so that's a quick little intro to SIGMAXIM and some questions about approaches to Creo automation. So before we jump into the carrier automation journey story, we're going to give you a preview. We're going to give you a glimpse for the next few minutes as to what kind of automation technology does SIGMAXIM provide our customers like you. That way you'll understand better the kinds of things that Carrier has done before we get into that. So we're going to explain that with a couple of examples, and I'll hand the mic over to my colleague, 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗏.
Thanks, Nelson. Hi, everyone. As Nelson said, my name is 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'm Director of Engineering here at SIGMAXIM, and we really are excited to have everybody here with us during this session. We don't want this to become a sales pitch, but we recognize it's a necessary evil to kind of showcase our capabilities. Many of you may be unfamiliar with what we do. As the poll showed, a lot of you haven't done a lot of automation. So we're going to keep this very brief. We wanted to point out a few things. For example, SIGMAXIM specializes, as Nelson said, in Creo automation. It's all we do. And our tool set, specifically Smart Assembly, that we're going to be focused on today, provides comprehensive coverage for almost all of your Creo automation needs. Now, that is a key phrase. What are your Creo automation needs? Each of you has a unique set of requirements and needs that you have to fulfill. And your definition of automation will be unique to you. And in our 23-year history, we've identified two main categories of automation that everybody falls into. We're going to be talking today about configuration in interactive automation or interactive design. So what we're going to do is Nelson's going to flip to a video here in a second. He's going to start that, and we're going to talk about that configuration video first. So Nelson, if you want to get that video started. To us, configuration basically applies to any product or process that can be fully defined. Basically, all automations begin with a need to bring in some form of design inputs from a source, whether it's internal or external. What you're seeing on the screen is a simple website page. We offer a platform for that, but we also bring in from other sources, including anything that you have internally developed. Now, once we have those inputs, they are sent into the Creo design side, and our automation is designed to utilize your native Creo geometry, embedding your best practices and utilizing external functions to link together sources of design data into the automation environment. The automation is there to augment your existing design practices by opening up possibilities that are impractical for your users to follow. For example, in iterative processing, which is occurring on the screen right now, these can be quickly and efficiently done by the computer, effectively narrowing down to the best possible design without having to lock down your Creo users for days, weeks, or even months. With that external data connectivity, we can virtualize your design processes, basically making them easier to build and maintain your automation. These external connections allow transfer of data between Creo processes, other business systems, tying together ERP, MRP processes, bills of material, direct communication of design characteristics, creation of drawings, 3D annotations, and so on. All of these things can be done using native Creo tools within our Smart Assembly and Smart Design Server automation packages. Now, that was, in essence, configuration. Basically, the second category that we find ourselves working in quite frequently is an area that deals with process improvement and standardization. This category, what we call interactive, is looking at your daily Creo processes and trying to come up with ways to improve your consistency and reliability. This automation starts with a question. If I could make an easy button to improve a CAD process, what would it be? What you're watching here is a automation that was constructed around a question that said, how do I help build spot welds in my model structure? This is a function that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of process steps that have to be done, building joint bodies, defining material and weld properties, creating detailed spot weld locations at different levels within the assembly, manipulation of existing welds, and so on. The entire process basically requires that a user is going to spend significant time navigating through multiple levels of the assembly, activating and controlling combined view states, populating parameter and annotation information, exporting key details, and so on. At the same time, the user has to make sure that these welds are following the correct standards, which usually means digging through documents, identifying key characteristics, matching up applicable standards, and so on. With the automation and with Smart Assembly, all of these rules and requirements are at the fingertips of your users. In most cases, the rules are actually automatically applied without the user even having to make a decision. However, they can also be used to augment and provide feedback to the user so that they can make decisions and perform the steps necessary to build the correct geometry and practices that you need to have in your models. With automation, all of the features, the parameters, any MBD data that you may have are all controlled by the system, basically allowing the user to focus on the design itself rather than the picks and clicks inside Creo. Basically, the benefit is that the Creo user has the confidence that they are going to create the correct geometry, the correct data, and it's all going to be done according to the best practices that have been established by you and your organization, whatever they may be. These things basically all come together and augment the user's experience. They give the user the ability to do their work quickly, effectively, and efficiently while maintaining the highest level of quality, the highest level of efficiency within your organization, just by utilizing different practices within the automation. Basically, those two videos and those two topics, those two areas of expertise are what we have found historically over the last 20 plus years. Now that you've seen what SIGMAXIM can do, let's get back to the topic of hand and actually let's talk with Michael from Carrier and see how he was able to utilize Smart Assembly and SIGMAXIM automation. Nelson, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Joel. Fantastic. So we've shown just two brief examples in general of some of the kinds of things you can do with SIGMAXIM. And now it's time for some real world customer perspective. So we've got the man of the hour, Michael Dennis from Carrier. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina, mechanical engineering degree from UNCC, working on his master's. For over 10 years, he's held positions in engineering and design. And at Carrier, he's a systems engineer and he leads their design automation team. So the products worked on range from small scale to large scale with thousands of components. So Michael, we've got a couple of questions to pose to you. So ready to get started?
Sure.
All right. So first is, could you just simply walk us through your timeline, your history with Smart Assembly at Carrier? Really, how did you go from an intro demo, kind of like we showed today, to implementation, really?
Okay. So we started back a little bit more than 6 years ago in our journey. We looked at a few different options for automation and settled on SIGMAXIM's product when we saw a couple of the demos that were shown today. After seeing those demos, we organized a training at one of our sites. During that training, several business units came together, and I will say that I don't lead the entirety of our design automation team. There's a lot of good work happening within our organization, not just done by me. And so the members of that training went through the 5-day course that SIGMAXIM offers, which I'd speak incredibly highly of. It's probably the best CAD related training that I had ever been to, delivered by Charlie Fuller at the time. I'm not sure if he's still with SIGMAXIM. We went to the training, and we clearly landed, or we had applications targeted before we even went to the training, centered around configuration, so that as we started, we clearly fell into the configuration side of the bucket. And I would say that largely we still do today. After 2017, we came back and we started releasing workflows within Smart Assembly as quickly as we could. A couple of business units took greater hold with it than others. And they've been writing scripts since then. Libraries of, between in the mid to high double digits of workflows have been written to support a whole host of things. Joel, one thing that I would say that we've been delving into more heavily recently is information gathering, not even configuration or the user interface based tools that you were talking about earlier, but using Smart Assembly to do mass information gathering and allowing our teams to do it in a very customized and automated fashion.
Right.
And so that we continue to develop scripts these days, and we just take it wherever our needs lead us.
Awesome. And about how many people do you have now that are writing, Smart Assembly applications?
Somewhere around 10 or 11
Okay.
globally within our organization.
And can you ballpark how many automation applications you guys have deployed for the Creo users at Carrier?
I would say high double digits, low triple digits.
Wow. Okay. So great answer. Love to hear how things got started. You've really got a good handle over the years on what the automation needs are and where they're going and how to expand. Just really good to hear about that experience. Let's move on to the next question. And you started to allude to some of this. How have you captured best practices in the groups at Carrier?
So I would say that this is a place where we're a little bit weaker than I would like to be. I went from a design role several years ago and spent some time in the engineering role within the organization, where I did less interfacing with Creo and Smart Assembly, so that it kind of teams went in their own directions while I was quote unquote away. We have since gathered the global user group again, and we're capturing best practices where they're needed, but we don't really want to inhibit the scripting of these tools. We only capture best practices where there's big failure modes or those sort of things. We want to give the teams as much freedom to apply Smart Assembly to their products as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Let's move on to the next one, kind of the other end of the spectrum here. What transformational work has been done, larger scale, longer term type things?
So I would say that these ones, while I enjoy them because they're impressive and they can do some incredible work integrating design rules with, the design work in your product, so that you have a lower rework loop with your engineers and design teams as they work together. Your product knowledge experts can embed their knowledge in the software, and we've put manufacturing rules in the tools specific to our factories to make sure that the what comes out of Smart Assembly is manufacturable on the shop floor. Lots of input being given by a large cross-functional team, and what that results in is a faster time to market and a higher level of configurability, being able to support it on a better schedule. That is to say that I think that the better application of Smart Assembly is the smaller, less transformational tools, because they're easier to get to your customers and easier to maintain, but where the application calls for it, investing the time and energy to write some of these more complicated scripts that handle large assembly management and things like that can be quite beneficial, and we've seen a lot of benefit out of those at Carrier.
Good. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one here. I know you've mentioned this in conversations we've had in the past, and you mentioned it a minute ago. outside of Creo. So we talked mostly about Creo automation. What other kinds of things have you been doing with SIGMAXIM's tools?
So I think this is something we're going to be doing a lot over the next 2 to 5 years. We Creo, one of the things that or 𝗧𝗏𝗧 rather one of the things that was presented to us at the outset when we went to the training is that it can integrate with ERP MRP systems like SAP, and being able to transfer and automate the data creation there, although TIBCO servers can do that as well. It's another option for data validation, data checks, all sorts of things. And we have some major projects, not with SAP, but with other softwares that might apply to. We also do a lot of just data collection as we do migrations and cleanup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you mentioning data collection a minute ago. Okay. Let me pause here for just a second before we go to the last question. Joel or Lino, if he's still on, are there any questions that we need to pause and take on now before we continue? Just thought I'd ask.
Nothing at the moment. Nobody's asked any questions, but everybody
Okay.
feel free to post a question. As Dana mentioned, you can get in and type out your question, and both Lino and myself are paying attention, and we'll get those questions asked.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, Michael, let's move on here. So if someone's thinking about introducing Creo automation with SmartAssembly to their company or to their boss or boss's boss, the question is going to be, well, what's it in it for me? What's it going to do for our business? So and you've already started to mention a couple of these. What have you really seen as far as the impact on the business? And, where did you see it first as you expanded bit by bit over the years? How has that really helped your business?
So I guess to answer the first part of your question is the what's in it for me is both for the organization and the coders. One reason I think it was successful in our organization is that I and another gentleman on my team, and I can't speak for the other business units, but at least for the one that I started with, we used SmartAssembly not only to automate some of the process that our leadership was looking for us to automate, but also to automate some of the parts of our own job that were painful processes in Excel because it has good Excel connectivity. Mm-hmm. Manual data entry was automated as quickly as we could. Anything we could pull from parameters and the Creo elements we did, so that we had to spend less of our day doing that because we found it painful to begin with, and we had now been given a tool that allowed us to automate it. From a leadership and a overall organizational standpoint, I think that just being able to do design work faster so that you can either contain your cost or use your resources more efficiently and to solve some of the challenges within your business, and you're not spending your time doing the picks and clicks and the grunt work in Creo. Another big one is cross-functional work. I think that and at least my experience in our organization is certainly the engineering teams want to automate their processes first, but if you don't, work cross-functionally and automate some of the pain points between, say, your quality and supply chain groups, I think you're leaving a lot of the power on the table that comes with SmartAssembly.
Mm-hmm. And you may have mentioned this before and I missed it, but it'd be worth re-emphasizing. What would you estimate, like when you do implement one of these automation apps and one of these automation projects, what kind of time savings do you typically see from those?
I'd say a 50%. So cutting the time in half is a bare minimum. The high end is anywhere between 80 and 95%, depending on the complexity of what you're trying to do. There are some limitations with regards to, drawings, and just some of the getting to a 100% complete drawing, I don't think is a feasible goal. Things like leader lines crossing and moving dimensions for legibility, depending on how complex the automation script you've written, is something that we typically leave to the user once it's done. But models are 99 or 95 to 100% complete, and drawings are probably usually 80 to 90% complete, and people just need to come in and touch them for legibility, and at least at the beginning when you're testing your script, of course, checking to make sure that the script is giving you what you want.
Yep, that's a great point.
Hey, Nelson, we
That's
do have
awesome.
we do have two questions that have come in.
Sure, and we can address them now, or we do have a question answer session at the end, but go ahead.
Okay, so Michael, this one I'm just going to ask you directly. So somebody's asking, how is Carrier handling the licensing experience for Smart Assembly? Are you dealing with floating, node lock licenses? Can you touch on that?
We're global and follow the sun.
Okay. So in other words, you're doing a floating license based on a global platform. So
Yes.
okay. Okay. And then we have one other question. We'll just go ahead and postpone that one. We'll ask that question in the Q&A in a couple minutes. That's a more general question. So we'll go on.
Yeah. Keep the questions coming. I appreciate those of you that submitted those. Keep the questions coming. Thank you, Joel. So first of all, we're going to say a big thank you to Michael. Really appreciate you sharing these tips and sharing your experience. That is golden. So really, really want to express our thanks and gratitude for joining us today. Hang on, there will be some more questions at the end that we'll answer. So keep those questions coming, everybody. And we've got some FAQs that we'll cover with Michael in just a minute. So the next question that we're gonna jump into here is, if you're interested, how do you engage with SIGMAXIM? How do you contact us? If you think there is a conversation worth having, how do we accelerate the Creo automation journey that you're on? And we've got some simple options here. You can email our general info at SIGMAXIM. You can check out our website for general info. And if you're interested in other details and a lot of case studies with customers that we've published over the past year, really, you'll find them all on our LinkedIn page. There's like one, every other month approximately. We're trying to work on a few more with other successful customers. So you can see what kind of projects they tackled and kind of benefits they got from their engagements with SIGMAXIM as well. Like I said, we're focused on your success, helping you achieve your goals with automation. That's why we're here. Okay, so now we're going to shift to a question answer session. If you have any other questions for Michael about Carrier's automation journey or Smart Assembly questions for SIGMAXIM, you can submit those. We're going to cover a few frequently asked, also known as always asked questions that come in almost every time we do sessions like this or group sessions. So we'll keep the question answer chat open. Yeah, there's one or two in there. And then we'll take a couple on here. So the first one is, how long does it take you to write an app in Smart Assembly? Here, you've got it defined out, and then you want to know, how much time are we going to have to spend writing this app? Michael, you want to chime in your opinion?
Yeah, sure. They can range pretty wildly. We have some best practices in place to make sure things are robust and they just take time. Things like writing standard work for everything we have and having title interfaces, stuff like that. Just putting the spit and polish on a tool so that if we were to do just a base functionality script to make sure that we can do what we want to do, a proof of concept type deal, that can be done very quickly. For a simple program, I'm saying a couple of hours at most. If we're going to put the spit and polish on that and make sure we're meeting customer requirements, there's some communication that has to happen there, as well as it just takes a little bit longer to evaluate robustness. So those are usually a couple of weeks to at least a couple of months, I would say. And then for our longer term ones where we're creating, geometry, multiple parts, multiple assemblies, configurations, family tables, all that fun jazz, we would end up, those ones sometimes take months to years, depending on how complex the configurability you're looking for is.
Yep. So that's a pretty wide range. I appreciate that. That's why we're here, everybody. Get these tips and techniques shared out. So here's another one we get every time. How much training does the average person need for Smart Assembly?
So I'd say that this one's a little bit tough for me to answer because I feel I've been blessed with some rather intelligent teammates. There were a few that I just tossed a book at of some general notes, and they were able to pick up Smart Assembly on their own. I would say that it's far easier for somebody with at least a little bit of coding background, understands the basics of line by line coding language, as well as loops and if statements, conditional cases, that the basic coding concepts will go a long way. So that it's tough to say how much for the average person. If you're sure they've already got the ability to write scripts, I think the admin guide is reasonably good and will get you where you need to go pretty quickly, maybe
Okay.
a month or so.
And you actually happened to just mention this. We were going to ask, what kind of guide do you reference for Smart Assembly? You mentioned an admin guide?
Yeah, the admin guide that comes with the software, as well as there are some third-party books out there that can be purchased for fairly cheap.
Okay. And this one goes right along with it. What would you describe as the profile or the skill set of someone who best succeeds with Smart Assembly? You mentioned, understanding basic coding concepts. Anything else like, Creo experience?
Of course, Creo experience. A lot of the commands you'll see in Smart Assembly are basic Creo language, erase not displayed, clearing workspaces, things like that, that I believe most of this audience already knows. And then also just being okay, kind of banging your head against the wall every once in a while, because I think that anyone who works in Creo on a frequent basis can find some finicky portions of the software, and because Smart Assembly stacks on top of Creo, those same challenges apply.
Gotcha. There's two more questions here. The next one is, what if our company already has map keys, component library, UDF library, toolkit apps, stuff like that? What do we do if we already have those?
They can all be called by Smart Assembly if you want to use those, along with Smart Assembly scripts, and put a better interface around them, or even increase their capability.
Joel, any comments on this or any examples you've seen where
No, I think Michael answered that one pretty well. I mean, we can use those directly, or we can enhance them. I mean, we've made the system flexible to handle all that. So Michael's answer was pretty much spot on with that. It's just a question of what you want to do. How much do you want to invest? How much is invested in your existing map keys, UDF libraries, toolkit apps? Just follow along and make the best decision, and Smart Assembly is there to support you either way.
Yep. And the last frequently asked question before we get to any others that may have come in during the session, and this will apply to probably most in the audience, but not all, is, does Smart Assembly work well if we're on Windchill?
So this one's an area that I believe the answer is yes. Joel, you might want to answer this one instead of me. We haven't delved too much into the inner workings of it connected to Windchill. Certainly it can retrieve components, check in, check out. All of the EPM document functions that you need to do should be there. But outside of that, we are in our infancy and working towards Windchill integration with Creo and Smart Assembly.
Yeah, and again, I mean, Michael, what you stated there is absolutely correct. Basically, the functionality that Creo has direct into Windchill, we have the ability to support that directly right with Smart Assembly. So as you mentioned, retrieving models, download, check in, check out, clearing out your workspace, making a workspace, even controlling the connection to Windchill, hopping from servers to server. We have some customers who deal with that. Those functions are direct out of the box with Smart Assembly. However, we can expand that to reach into automation within Windchill itself. So if you have specific functions that deal with maybe your CR process or WT parts, there are ways to build automation within Windchill, and then we can connect with that and communicate to that information in Windchill. So basically, the sky's the limit. Some functions are out of the box, other functions require some customization, but are doable. So.
Great. Any questions in the queue that we should address now, or should we?
Yeah, we can address them now. So we have 4 different questions here. One of which I'm gonna hop down to the one that deals with licensing again. There was another question here. Someone had been using SmartAssembly in the past. There was a question about, they said, I want to ask a question about licensing. It's understood that on the license part, is it still one license for one machine, or is there a change in licensing? And basically the answer to that is you have the ability to do floating licenses. We use a FlexLM technology just like PTC does. You can have a license dedicated to a specific machine if you want, or you can have a floating license set where you can even dedicate those floating licenses to certain users if you want. Again, really, sky's the limit. It's up to you on how you want to implement things. Now, the other 3 questions, basically, Michael, I'm gonna pose them to you, but then feel free to toss them back to me if you want. The first question came in is, does this tool have the ability to identify components that will take too long to open and caution the user? And the idea of too long is something that would be defined by the admin.
I would assume that we do that based on memory size, Joel, and I've never approached that with SmartAssembly. We haven't had a need yet, so I'm going to popcorn that one back to you.
Yeah, okay, so sure. I mean, so memory size could be one thing. We could take a look at the file, identify how big it is. We could also take a look at just a document or a database or an Excel spreadsheet that says these parts have a significant amount of time to open. Again, really, it's a question of what is your particular need. As I mentioned early on, you're going to have a unique need and a unique requirement. How would you handle that the best way for your environment? So there's 6 ways to do this. We just have to identify the correct way. I'm going to state, yes, we have the ability to do that. Okay. Another question that came in, is there a way to see an example of a part to a drawing SmartAssembly process? I'll go ahead and take that one, Michael, because I know you're not allowed to share them, but yes, we can show that. We have demonstrations that we can showcase taking parts and making drawings from them. Michael, you've done that sort of work, taking parts to drawings before. I think you mentioned that earlier, correct?
Yeah, we have both tools that take a model as an input, and then we create a standard drawing from it, because they're fairly simple components to, giving inputs to Creo to both create the model and the drawing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, great. And again, if you want to see a demo on that, Nelson gave those links earlier in the presentation. You can follow through with one of those, and we can get you some information, more detailed information that way. The last question that we have in the system right now, it says, can SmartAssembly integrate with Teamcenter with full functionality? Obviously, Michael, you're going to want to toss that back to me, I'm assuming, because you're in Windchill. Yes. So, but basically, the answer to that is we have the ability to integrate with Teamcenter. The question is the idea of full functionality. Teamcenter has its own unique API requirements. There are ways for us to connect into those API requirements. We have customers who are using Teamcenter. Depending on what version they're in, we have seen varying degrees of success. We have not ourselves actually helped anybody with that. It's all been done internally. So what I would suggest you do is we can talk, we can look at your problem, we can identify what your needs are, and figure out what we can do and how to help integrate. We have successfully integrated with a bunch of different PDM systems. We've done obviously Windchill, because that's out of the box. We've done one, there was one called Pro PDM. There's a bunch of other ones that we've taken care of on a customer level. Again, each one is unique. Each scenario is different for your environment. We just have to sit down, look at it with you, figure out how best to accomplish that. And then Nelson, there was one thing, and this is something Dana maybe can answer, maybe Lino. The links that are in your presentation here, we need to post them for folks to be able to see them, Nelson. So we need to either put those into the chat or they need to go out. Lino,
No, they'll be posted in the recording
Okay.
section. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
There you go. So that's the other
Good.
question.
Perfect.
So those are the questions we've had come in so far. And if we still have time, if anybody wants to send some more questions in, we can get them answered.